What's going on? Welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Fellas podcast. It is all three fellas, Lucas, Cameron, and Tyler, hanging out with you on a Thursday night, May 5th. Gentlemen, how are we doing this
it's
evening?
Cinco de Mayo. What more can you ask for? Had May the 4th yesterday.
World peace. Sorry.
It was more of a rhetorical question. You know, I've been kind of working on those with my third graders. Every time I say something, you don't have to respond and try to make me look stupid. You know, like you can just let me have my moment. Like I shouldn't have to like beg for it. But I mean, you do you, I guess.
I will do me. But it is Cinco de Mayo. You're correct. I'm sorry I cut you off.
Ty, how are you?
Oh man. Hey gents, welcome to I don't really want to call it a new season of the Fantasy Football Fellas, but it really does feel like a new season of the Fantasy Football Fellas now that the draft's over and like we're on to the next season now pretty much. So happy new season to y'all.
Yeah. We're coming up on a year.
Happy season 2. Happy season 2 of the Fantasy Football Fellas. I think that this will be the inaugural episode of season 2. Happy season 2 of the Fantasy Football Fellas. Throw your own party. BYOP in your own party. Yes, we're excited to break down some winners and losers fantasy-wise from the NFL draft. We were obviously live during the NFL draft. If you missed our last 2 episodes and our struggle bus with the audio, I feel like I need to give more of a disclaimer. I gave like a nice little minute disclaimer on one of the episodes, but I feel like I need to go into depth. We were working with the soundboard. We were working with plugging our mics into a soundboard and being live in person together. And it was our first time using said equipment. So we now know what works and what doesn't work. We now know how to also adjust the volume. And we also know how to not make it sound like we're maxing out the mics every single time. More so, how I'm not going to max out the mic every single time. So I do apologize for that, but thanks for bearing with us. So we will have better content for you there in the future. But we are breaking down some winners and losers, both rookies and non-rookies, from the NFL draft last week. But before we even get to any of that, we need to recognize something of grave importance here. Last week, during our rookie draft, the fellas had a little friendly bet, a little friendly wager. We each had our own mock drafts, and we had our point system and everything, and whoever had the most points at the end of the night was going to get a 2-minute monologue on this inaugural Season 2 podcast of the Fantasy Football Fellas. And that winner was Tyler. He did win the mock draft wager between the fellas. So Tyler, I now give you 2 minutes to monologue on anything of your choosing. And to my understanding, you've actually kept it NFL fantasy football.
Yeah, I thought about going the, if you wear a jersey of a player that you think is just cool, but you actually don't like support the team, you're just a fake fan route. I thought about doing something kind of like, how are you doing mentally, emotionally, spiritually? How are you guys doing, right? Like, something a little more interactive, you could say. But like you said, I kept it within the football, fantasy football guidelines. So, I guess 4 minutes recording starts now. 2 minutes. Here we go. So,
Clack.
So
let's do it.
I'm going to talk about Ezekiel Elliott for 2 minutes and why I think people are overreacting to what they call a bad season, which he did finish running back 7 last season. So that's point number 1. Number 2, who are like the 2 running backs that probably would have finished higher than him had they played a full season?
Christian McCaffrey's
1
number
and
1.
2 would be
Dalvin Cook.
No. Well, he played the majority of the season.
Derrick Henry.
That's true, he did.
Derrick Henry.
That's who we're missing.
We can agree that those 2
I love how I went to Dalvin over Derrick Henry.
we can agree that those 2 players, if they played a full season, would have finished ahead of Zeke, right?
I would agree.
Yeah, okay.
Yes,
so if
100%.
that's the case, then Zeke would have finished running back 9, which is still running back 1. That's point number 2. Let's look at this from a stat standpoint real quick, okay? 237 rushing attempts is 7th most out of all running backs. compared to 130 from Tony Pollard. That's not even close. That's 100 carries more. Rushing yards. He had 1,002 rushing yards. That's 7th most in the league. Pollard had 719. Okay, a little bit, little too close for comfort, but we can just say that Pollard was a little more efficient on the ground than Zeke. But still, he was a 1,000-yard rusher. Let's go to the receiving game. Zeke had 65 targets. Pollard had 46. Zeke had 47 receptions. Pollard had 39. Pollard had Zeke on yards by roughly 50 yards, but Zeke made up for it with 2 touchdowns. All this to say, Zeke is going to be just fine. He is not he's not a running back 2. He's a low-end running back 1 that you could target at the end of round 1. And look, he may not have the flashiest season that we've seen in the past, but he is one of the more safe running back picks, especially going into this year with Michael Gallup going to be missing some time and James Robinson and Jalen Tolbert being the starting wide receivers. They will use Zeke this year. He will finish very, very well this year in fantasy football. End scene.
Look at that. That was nice. Right on
That was rehearsed.
2 minutes.
Not at all. I swear to you. Like,
He spent all day.
I have the notes that I did 15 minutes before we started recording, pretty much.
No,
That's that.
I don't believe it. You woke up at 5 a.m. this morning and have practiced at least 30 times.
Well, you know, I am
Practice in the mirror like any good public speaker.
I am a natural public speaker. Like,
3
I
times.
aced every single presentation I ever did in college and high school. So, like, this is like no big deal for me. But
He had Mo sit in front of him and talk to Mo.
what do you think I do during the day when my parents are at work
Modo.
and I'm then staying with the dog? I have to talk to somebody, right?
Modog gets all of it. I love it. I love it. Well, let's before we move on to breaking. Well, Tyler, thank you for bringing in our inaugural segment there for 2-minute monologue due to a friendly competition. Before we get to everything else, let's cover some news and notes from around the league. Praying that comes.
Please.
If not, you had a moment of silence. Deebo Samuel, not traded, has refollowed the 49ers on Instagram. Things appear to be on the mend for Deebo Samuel and the 49ers next year. All of a sudden, we may not see a trade of Deebo Samuel. The top, quick thoughts. What's helped this change? The fact that Deebo didn't get traded on draft night and the 49ers couldn't field a good enough package for him?
I have just come up with this theory in my head. There was a report today that Trey Lance is underwhelming the 49ers. And I believe Jimmy Garoppolo is going to start for the 49ers next year. So Deebo is okay with staying because he knows that he's going to get the targets.
As a Trey Lance
didn't
manager?
think he's going to get with Trey Lance, which I think is the
You're
reason
wrong.
he wanted out.
Tyler, what do you... I don't mind that theory. I don't know how much weight I can actually put into it, but that's interesting to think about.
There's too much coincidence in that theory to not be true. So I really, really like it.
Thank you.
That being said, I wonder if Deebo's agent made some phone calls and said, hey, what would be the price tag you would sign Deebo for if he was traded to your team? And once teams got back to him and said, like, probably like 16 million a year or something around that, Deebo's like, okay, you know what? Maybe I stay one more year. If I get the franchise tag, I'm going to get more money than if I was traded and then extended somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not going to be the worst thing in the world. And then maybe, you know, when he's on the franchise tag, then he forces a trade. Because then that theory of, oh, Trey Lance can be the starter, then comes back into play. So that's my theory.
I think it has a lot to do with draft night and the fact that the 49ers didn't field a worthy, quote unquote worthy package in their minds, and so now they're like, well, I guess we're stuck with him. We may as well do something about it. And it's not like he's the worst player in the world to have. I don't know. He just put up an incredible season. Why would you want to get rid of him anyway? So maybe we should pay him. So I'm sure they're at this point. I think Debo probably called their bluff, and now all of a sudden they're ready to sign him again. But we won't know. I'm expecting more information in the coming days, and it wouldn't surprise me if it does revolve more around the front office and potentially even the QB situation. That's something to keep an eye on. Tyrann Mathieu, 3 years, $33 million with the New Orleans Saints. They are going to win this year. They're striving to go win a Super Bowl this year. This move proves it. I honestly love this move for the Saints. I don't think there's much more we need to say there. They're going to win it all this year, and rightfully so. They have the team to go out and try and do that. I would argue they're a quarterback away, but who knows? Jameis to the promised land, baby. Ron Rivera. This was a dagger to the heart of an Antonio Gibson truther. Yours truly. Not this year, but in past years, I've always loved Antonio Gibson. Ron Rivera says he wanted to use Antonio Gibson and newly drafted rookie Brian Robinson as a duo like Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams when he was in Carolina. Antonio Gibson's season was over last year. Had a memorial at the end of last season when Gibby was popping off, and has now returned to the grave where it probably belongs forever. It sucks. It sucks. I love Brian Robinson as a player, but for Antonio Gibson, I don't like Brian Robinson at all. At all.
I do take this with a grain of salt though, because the last saying of, value that I remember Ron Rivera saying about Antonio Gibson was that he could be like CMC, and that didn't happen. So there's got to be something there that, there's got to be something in there that's truth. But to be an exact copy, as he's saying, of Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams seems a little far out there.
I think he's just going for trying to say that Antonio Gibson could be like every single running back that he coached in Carolina. He's already got 3 now, because who knows? He could be Jonathan Stewart. He could be D'Angelo Williams. He hasn't clarified, so he's got 3. He's got a couple more left that he could hit. It'd be interesting if he tries to go for like a Cam Newton comparison, but that remains to be seen.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
I love how that was a low-key dig at Cam Newton being a running back. I know that's exactly what that was. There was no other intention to that statement other to call Cam Newton a running back. All right. That's pretty much all the news we've had, because we went through all the crazy and wild trades at the NFL draft as they happened on our 2 previous podcasts. So again, go check those out if you want to get more literal live reactions on those. But for now, let's turn our attention to winners and losers fantasy-wise from the NFL draft. So here's what we're going to do. Oh,
no, I'm crossing my fingers with Canley. Please come through. Please come through.
I'm just giving up at this point. Maybe what we need to do from now on is just automatically just put in our own transitions of hey, and then it's the next thing. Yeah, have to do our own transitions. Winners and losers, fantasy wise, from the NFL draft. Here's how it's gonna go. We each have 2 winners. One of those winners is going to be a player that was drafted, a rookie player. And one of those players is also going to be a non-rookie, a veteran player that also benefited from the NFL draft in some capacity. We also then have 2 losers. Same thing. One loser, one rookie loser that was drafted, one veteran that because of the NFL draft is a loser as well. But we're going to start with the winners, because that's always the best place to start. And we're going to start with the veteran winners. Cameron, who is your veteran winner from the NFL draft?
Finally, one of my pro Ravens agendas is starting to pay off. I had been pushing 3 of them. One of them isn't looking so hot, but I'm kind of getting more confident again after they haven't signed a free agent in J.K. Dobbins. But Rashad Bateman is the guy that I think is one of the biggest winners of the draft for fantasy football. And the reason for this is they traded away Marquise Brown, and there are no free agents that are going to come in to take that top spot. You know, I mean, they might split, be a 1A, 1B, but nobody's going to come in and be that alpha anymore. They're not going to sign, and they're not going to trade for anyone. Now, the thing about the Ravens going in next year, Mark Andrews is the number one target. That I don't think we're going to argue at all. And I think they're going to run the ball way more, having both Dobbins and Edwards back. However, Bateman, when I just statted out Bateman for this upcoming year, and I have him getting around 125, 130 targets. That'd be like 85, 90 receptions, putting him a little bit over 1,000 yards. And, you know, he sees 7, 8 touchdowns. I mean, he's in that conversation for a low-end wide receiver 2. Mid to low-end wide receiver 2. And I don't think that's out of the realm of possibilities. I mean, obviously I don't. I just sat it out, or told you that I did. But, you know, that was something that we were kind of hoping we could see from Marquise Brown, and he just never was able to finish a season. We saw it in spurts, and I think that Rashad Bateman just has the frame, you know, because Marquise Brown was just so much smaller than what Rashad Bateman is, that Bateman's going to be able to get more of those contested catches that Brown probably wouldn't have got. So I do think that Bateman is a huge winner from this draft.
I couldn't agree more. I am in. If you tell me you're ready to push Rashad Bateman, wide receiver 2, like not overall, but like plug and play every single week, wide receiver 2 in your lineup.
Yep,
I could get behind that. But Sammy Watkins is gone too.
Devin Duvernay.
Nobody's there anymore. Nobody. It's Rashad Bateman. It's nobody. Mark Andrews and Rashad Bateman. That's it. I'm in on Rashad Bateman. 1,000%. Ironically enough, Tyler, your winner made Rashad Bateman a winner, and I think that gives it away. But explain to the people who your winner from the NFL draft is from a veteran perspective.
My non-rookie winner is Hollywood Brown, and this is the sole reason is because he's going to an offense that suits him much better than a run-first Baltimore offense. And we'll call it convenience, but I feel like a big reason why Arizona just traded for Hollywood Brown was because they knew about the D-Hop suspension, which we forgot to mention in news and notes. That was a huge piece that we forgot.
I was going to bring that up once you're done. That's on me. That's on me.
So, yeah, with DeAndre Hopkins suspended for 6 games, I think it is. 6 games, first 6 games of the season, he steps in as the guy. I mean, Rondale Moore, nah. AJ Green, meh. Right, like, I think Hollywood Brown, and especially being former teammates with Kyler Murray back in Oklahoma, I'm kind of anticipating that they are not going to skip a beat at all, and Hollywood Brown is going to really kind of show people why, you know, he was actually worth a first-round draft pick, was worth a first-round draft pick in a trade, and can be a legit future number 1 for Arizona post DeAndre Hopkins.
Marquise Brown is the wide receiver 2 Arizona has needed forever. Like, Christian Kirk is nice and all, but like Hollywood Brown's explosiveness, route running, speed, quick, everything. Hollywood Brown the better wide receiver than Christian Kirk? I think we can all agree on that.
Yes.
Pretty easily. Yeah. The dream wide receiver 2 for this offense once DeAndre Hopkins gets back, but now, I mean, he walks into a better quarterback play situation with Kyler Murray over Lamar Jackson, who's going to throw the ball more. I agree, 1,000%. My veteran winner from the NFL draft, get this, Robert Woods.
Bobby
Robert
Trees.
Woods. Now, coming off of an ACL, not a great look, not a great start to this argument, but the Titans traded away A.J. Brown, the number 1 target getter in that offense. All of a sudden, Robert Woods is the veteran wide receiver on that team who, Ryan Tannehill can trust as a veteran wide receiver who understands NFL corners and NFL pressures and everything that has to do with the NFL. Robert Woods is a vet. He knows what's going on. So I think we're going to see a lot of those targets get funneled to Robert Woods. Again, may not be great off the bat, but all of a sudden Robert Woods steps into this like pseudo wide receiver one role in this Tennessee Titans offense with Ryan Tannehill. And all of a sudden you're not forcing Ryan Tannehill to chuck the ball all the way down the field. Instead, you can just throw short intermediate routes to Robert Woods. Big winner from the draft because the Titans decided to part ways with A.J. Brown for fantasy purposes. I don't know if I'm ready to put Robert Woods in like wide receiver 2 territory yet. I think he's still like a wide receiver 3. But I think he's a fine addition to your team this upcoming season. Let's move on to some rookie winners from the NFL draft, players that were drafted specifically. And ironically enough, Cameron, your rookie winner is going to be on the other side of the ball from Robert Woods this upcoming
year. It's going to be Treylon Burks. I think Burks is going to have a pretty decent fantasy year, and I think he's going to have a pretty good fantasy career. He's a guy that flourishes off of manufactured touches. And so why not, off of Derrick Henry play action, throw it out to Treylon Burks? You got a guy who can make things happen, who's going to see single coverage more often than not, having Derrick Henry on his team. You know, teams want to put 8 guys in the box every time Derrick Henry is on the field. So you're forced to have Treylon Burks one-on-one with the corner. And you know what? I'm okay with taking that and thinking Treylon Burks is going to win 50% of the time. You know, he's just 215 pounds and just runs downfield and wants to run someone over. So he's 225, isn't he? So he's even bigger. He's a big boy.
He is 225.
And so, you know, I just think that, and Tannehill's not going to chuck it deep a lot. And Treylon Burks doesn't need that. He just needs to get in space. And I think that they're going to use him just like that. And he's going to have great fantasy value.
As someone who took Treylon Burks at the 103 in our dynasty draft, I agree. Yeah. Again, if you're the Titans, you have 2 big dynamic playmakers. You have Derrick Henry, you have Treylon Burks. Feed those boys the ball and let them get to work. I 100% agree. Tyler, your rookie wide receiver is actually someone who may get a bit overlooked. I don't want to say overlooked, but based on how his career ended in college and given the situation he kind of landed in, I wonder if he might be overlooked. But I agree with you. This player is actually a big winner for the draft.
This winner is John Mechie. And I don't think a lot of people know a whole lot about Mechie. Some people may even say he was a reach in the second. I will say I had him comfortably in the second because when he was healthy in Alabama and teammates with Jameson Williams, John Mechie was the wide receiver 1. You can make an argument that Jameson was more efficient and whatnot, but when it came to targets and when it came to who do you get the ball to on third downs, on crucial situations, it was John Mechie. So this landing in Houston is probably the most ideal spot because he's not going to need to be rushed back. He's Brandon Cooks light. He doesn't have the speed of Cooks, but he does have that ability to somehow always be open, right? And that phrase "always be open" is kind of a phrase that's thrown out there a lot, but like Mechie's always open. He's always open. And there was an update 5 days ago. He's going to be full go by July. So he will by July.
By July.
Yep.
Really?
So he has a good chance of actually not missing like anything. Maybe he misses like the first couple weeks just because it's currently May 5th, right? And July is 2 months from now. So he may miss like a couple weeks, but don't be surprised if he kind of breaks out a little bit in Houston just because they have literally no one else. He's going to be a nice little compliment for Brandon Cooks and a nice weapon for Davis Mills.
I 100% agree. I think people actually need to like put John Mechie on their dynasty radars and make him at least a mid-second round pick in your dynasty leagues. If you have a need at wide receiver and you have an early second round pick and guys, obviously the big five, Jahan Dotson, Pickens, Watson, Sky Moore are off the board. Like, I think John Mechie might be my next guy after those 7-8 guys.
Agreed.
I love John Mechie and even his landing spot in Houston, it seems bad. I love it. I love the fit across the field from Brandon Cooks being the number 2 guy. My rookie winner, this one isn't a surprise to anybody. It is Christian Watson. Very raw talent. Dominated at the Senior Bowl, though. I feel like everybody's worries was like, oh, he didn't play against good enough talent. And well, the Senior Bowl is where you go to show that you actually belong with the best seniors in the nation. And he walks into a situation now with Aaron Rodgers, just got his bag, has nobody else there. I'm sorry, if you think Sammy Watkins is a threat, if you think Amari Rodgers is a threat, Alan Lazard is really the only person I'd take an argument for of like, oh, well, he could see more targets than Christian Watson. I also think it's just because Christian Watson is a rookie, and rookies with the track record with Aaron Rodgers isn't all that great. But I'll tell you what, Christian Watson has the build of like the prototypical stud wide receiver, and he's blazing fast. This was honestly, the rumor came out that Aaron Rodgers wanted the Packers to draft Treylon Burks. Obviously, Treylon Burks went at 18 and not at 22. I think Christian Watson's a pretty dang good consolation prize for that. His fit in Green Bay, I think, will be awesome. He'll be awesome in Green Bay. I'm really looking forward to see how Aaron Rodgers hopefully brings him along. And I don't think he won't be force-fed like Davante Adams. And by no means am I expecting Davante Adams numbers, but if you're talking about one of the highest upside prototypical guys in the draft, and he lands with a top 3 quarterback in the NFL, that's a massive win if you're Christian Watson, and you could have gone to any place in the NFL with how, admittedly, how raw his talent is. So give him as surefire of a quarterback as possible, and Aaron Rodgers is as surefire of a quarterback as they come. So I love his landing spot in Green Bay. I do feel like because we brought up like prototypical surefire quarterbacks and wide receivers, I feel like we do need to give an honorable mention to Sky Moore. Him in Kansas City is a dream, I think, for him. That I'm surprised he fell all the way to them in the draft. But that wraps out our winners. Let's turn the corner here and chat some unfortunate losers from the NFL draft. And like our winners, we will start with veteran losers first. And maybe the most obvious one, it came at the cost of getting the best running back in the draft for this team. So Cameron, your biggest loser is unfortunately
Michael Carter. And I just want to point out, when we did our sophomore rankings, I had put Ramondre Stevenson over Michael Carter for this very reason, because I did not believe that Michael Carter could be that just that one in an offense. I think I put it on our TikTok today. He's a Nyheim Hines to Breece Hall's Jonathan Taylor. I'm not saying they're as good, but I think that those are the roles that they're going to play. Michael Carter, we saw it last year in spurts. He can be a great receiving back, so he's still going to have value. It's not like he's totally crushed, but any dream we had of him running this offense is out the window now, because Breece is there for 4 years at the very least, and by that time Michael Carter will most likely be gone. And so, the touchdowns are going to come down. Rushing work's definitely going to come down. Reception would probably stay pretty similar, although he didn't have great receiving work with Zach Wilson last year. It all came with Mike White, the check down king. And so, I don't know. I think it really, like a dynasty, you had some hope for Michael Carter, being so young, having that kind of production profile, but it's not there anymore.
It's so sad because Michael Carter was one of our favorite late round sleeper guys in drafts last year that were like, just go invest in this guy. And that turned out extremely well last year. And I was hoping we could, again, push that this year of hey, look, the Jets didn't take a running back. All of a sudden, Michael Carter probably going in like the 7th round if you want someone at the tail end of that running back dead zone who could pan out as a running back 3 for you. You can just load up on wide receivers in the middle rounds. Michael Carter is going to be my guy for that. But c'est la vie, I suppose, with Michael Carter. Extremely unfortunate, but also when you have a shot at getting arguably the best wide receiver talent in this draft, the best running back talent in this draft, one of the best edge rushing talents in this draft, the best cornerback, arguably the best cornerback. The Jets just hit a home run all around, and you have the chance to get the best prospects at each position in the draft.
Yeah.
I don't know how you don't do that if you're the Jets. So, and arguably it was a hole that they needed to fill, at least add depth for, and they just went and just made Michael Carter.
Zach Wilson has no more excuses now. I mean, that the Jets confirmed that. Like, he's got everything he needs. He's got a rebuild offensive line. He's got so many weapons. The defense is coming along. If he can't succeed this year, then he's on a short leash, I think.
Absolutely. He is their guy going forward. They've committed to him by getting him the stud running back that he needs to succeed. Tyler, your veteran loser comes at the cost of adding the second best running back in this draft class. Which, look, both of these guys, I think all three of us were excited for this year. And both of these franchises just shot our hopes down.
Yeah, Rashad Penny is a major, major loser after the draft. The Seahawks took Kenneth Walker in the 2nd round, and initially I thought, wow, that's a really good fit for Kenneth Walker. And then the more I thought about it, I'm like, no, wait a minute. There's Chris Carson and Rashad Penny. Now we'll put Carson to the side for this argument and for this, for Rashad Penny's sake. Rashad Penny at the end of last year, I don't remember where he was, but he was a top 10 running back in the last, I want to say 4 weeks, last 5 weeks. Lucas, can you back me up on that?
Sorry, I admittedly was distracted. Can you?
He was he was a top 10 running back like the last 4 weeks, last 5 weeks of the season, right?
Yes.
So,
yes, yeah. No, Rashad Penny was, I believe,
top
3. The last.
So, yeah,
dude was on a tear.
He was on a
dude
tear.
Was on a tear.
And with the Seahawks going and getting Kenneth Walker, it really, really shows that they really just look at Rashad Penny as the fill-in guy. They don't see Rashad Penny as a guy with a future in Seattle. We can say that.
Yep. They signed him a 1-year deal.
So if Chris Carson's healthy, I wouldn't be surprised if they put Rashad Penny as running back 3 because they like Chris Carson that much. But if Carson's out, then Penny's running back 2. But I think the whole reason why they took Kenneth Walker was because they saw a much better natural runner in Kenneth Walker than they saw in Rashad Penny, which makes 0 sense because it's the same GM who chose both. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but at the end of the day, Rashad Penny pretty much got chopped from any kind of fantasy relevance for this year, unless someone gets injured, but we're not going to bank on that.
We don't stat or project anything like that. That is not our place to do so. But yeah, I 100% agree. As a Rashad Penny manager, I was heartbroken to hear the news that they did indeed take Kenneth Walker. I tried so hard to deal Penny beforehand, and I just couldn't pull the trigger on some of the trades that I was offered, and I just should have. I should have taken whatever I could have gotten in return for him, because I knew he would probably resign with Seattle. And even if Chris Carson wasn't back, then once that news came out, I'm like, oh my gosh, Rashad Penny, all to himself. The least they could have done is spent like a 4th round pick on a running back, not freaking Kenneth Walker in the 2nd. But I digress. I'm just avoiding going on and talking about my veteran loser because I am very, very sad about my veteran loser. Mostly because, again, So Cameron cut out at this point. Sorry, I need to state that reality as I'm like trying to segue into this point. Cameron cut out of our call. I'm trying to manage multiple things right now. Oh, never mind. We are good. Cameron, everything cut out for Cameron, so we'll see if he's able to join back. But my veteran loser from the NFL draft is A.J. Brown. And it has to be because he went to a team. At best, his move to Philly is a lateral move. Agree or disagree?
Agreed.
At best, it's lateral. And I say that because he is like very clearly the number one there, and I guess he kind of was in Tennessee. Robert Woods is no slouch, but and again, agree or disagree? Ryan Tannehill is the better NFL quarterback than Jalen Hurts.
He is.
Yeah, I was going to say I assume you agree, but at this point, I don't want Jalen Hurts throwing A.J. Brown the football in fantasy football. I don't trust that. I don't trust Jalen Hurts whatsoever based on what I've seen. And look, I just finished statting out A.J. Brown. I don't have him having the worst season ever, but I'm also projecting 17 games. I haven't gone over 1,200 yards, but honestly, like I statted him out, and the whole time I'm thinking this feels too high. This feels too high. Everything about this feels too high. 135 targets, 85 receptions, 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns. Still too high. Just feels too. I try to stay optimistic on A.J. Brown. I just can't because Jalen Hurts throwing him the football just terrifies me. And that's not something I want for fantasy football. So, unfortunately, A.J. Brown is my veteran loser. Let's transition to rookie losers as well. And Ty, I'm going to have you go first here. We've been going in a nice order of Cameron, Tyler, Lucas, but the number one of our order has butted out of our call. So, Tyler, who is your rookie loser from the NFL
my
draft?
rookie loser is my guy, Pierre Strong Jr., the running back from South Dakota State, who ended up going to the New England Patriots in, I want to say, the 4th round. I think the 4th, maybe the 5th. I think it's the 4th. But, look, Pierre Strong had probably I shouldn't say most potential, but he had the most amount of potential out of all the running backs in this class. Like, we knew that Breece Hall was going to be really good. We knew that Kenneth Walker was going to be really good. But Pierre Strong was kind of the wild card. And I thought he could really, really do some damage if he found the right situation. And what actually happened is he probably found the worst situation to go into by going to New England.
I have follow-up questions once you're done, but keep
Okay.
going.
He's now stuck behind Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson. He's going to be fighting for targets if he's going to be a receiving back with James White. Like, he went to the worst possible situation. And there's some hope maybe that like they move on from James White and Damian Harris after this season. But still, like, it's really, really going to be tough to see him kind of thrive in New England because of crowded backfields that New England will always have. And that's just not the right fit, not the right place for a guy like Pierre Strong Jr.
So here's my follow-up questions on Pierre Strong Jr. As somebody who took him in our rookie draft, Damian Harris is on a contract here. His contract's up after this year. What are the odds they went ahead and got arguably the best zone scheme running back in this draft? One of the best zone scheme running backs in this draft. What are the odds they went out and just got a replacement for Damian Harris next year? Because agree or disagree, Pierre Strong plays a lot more like Damian Harris than he does James White.
Yeah, I agree with that to a certain extent. I think Pierre Strong would have thrived in like a San Francisco or a
that would have been a dream.
I'm trying to think of another Atlanta. Like Atlanta, just because he would have gotten, maybe the system wouldn't have fit, but he would have gotten the volume to at least, like...
I would have loved that.
I think it's definitely plausible that New England is thinking ahead, saying, like, we're not bringing back Damian Harris, so let's go get, Pierre Strong as a little change of pace from Ramondre Stevenson, because I think they're a little bit of they're two different kinds of runners. They've got some similarities, but they've also got some differences. So maybe there's some hope for him in the future, but I think the best way to describe the situation is that Pierre Strong has to prove something to the coaches in New England, because that's what every rookie has to do. They have to prove to their coach that they're worthy of being considered and getting playing time on Sundays. That's going to be hard to do this year. And for a guy like Pierre Strong, who is pretty much, I mean, I'll say it, he's a boomer bust running back. That's not ideal. No. So I since he is my guy, I will hold a bit of hope, but it's cautious optimism, I'll say.
Yeah, you're sitting on that optimism for at least a year. At least a year you're sitting on that optimism of something will pan out in the future. Because then you also have to take in Ramondre into that account, which I thought about it, and I'm very hesitant, but at the end of the day, Pierre Strong is talented. I do think the Patriots like stocking up on their running backs. They also like to do high overturn on their or high turnover on their running backs. Look, Damian Harris came in as the third guy for New England, and now look at him, top 15 fantasy season last year. So I think there is hope for Pierre Strong. Just got to give it. If you draft him in your rookie drafts, you're going to be sitting on him for at least a year. That's just kind of the reality you have to come to. My rookie loser, and I'm very passionate about this one, is Velus Jones Jr. Part of my issue with him being a loser is that the Chicago Bears have to be, look, I know they turned over their front office. Ryan Poles. Hey, you know what? He's doing a fine job. He's tearing everything. He's tearing the studs down and everything. He's just getting to the ugly bits and pieces of this team and just tearing the whole thing down. But I'm sorry. Velus Jones Jr. over Jalen Tolbert? That blew my mind. Was Sky Moore still on the board?
No, he was gone at that point.
He was. Okay, good. I nearly had a heart attack when I just came to that realization of like, oh my gosh, did they take Velus Jones over Sky Moore? At any rate, it sounds like Velus Jones was the guy that Justin Fields wanted. But here's the thing about Velus Jones Jr. Tyler, do you know how old he's going to be going into this NFL season? He's going to be 25. You know how old DJ Moore is?
He's 24.
He's going to be 25 like 2 weeks before the NFL season. They went out. So maybe my loser isn't even like everybody for fantasy is just the Chicago Bears. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's my point here. Justin Fields a loser. Justin Fields is a loser from this draft, by the way. Another veteran loser. But Velus Jones Jr., I'm so sorry you had to go to this situation where you're having Justin Fields throw you the football. Your wide receiver one is Darnell Mooney. I love Darnell Mooney. That is not shade. That is not disrespect to Darnell Mooney. But when I think of prototypical wide receiver one in the NFL, I'll tell you who doesn't come to mind. Darnell Mooney. I don't know if he does for you. Can you confirm on that?
He does not. He does not. not in the slightest.
This pick just blows my mind, and to have the talent, the level of talent that Velus Jones has, and the situation that late breakout, very late breakout. I don't really like that. I want early breakouts. 25 years old. Dude's 1 year. Dude's 2 years younger than Terry McLaurin. Year and a half younger than Terry McLaurin. This dude is. I'm sorry, Velus Jones. I'm just going to cut it out. I just can't even fathom and collect my thoughts on how disappointed I am in Velus Jones landing with the Chicago Bears. Out of all places, he could have at least landed in like a Kansas City, right? I know Sky Moore went there, but like at least Velus has like a little bit of a fit in that kind of a scheme. He goes to Chicago Bears. He's going to be irrelevant. Absolutely irrelevant. He'll be the wide receiver 2 and be absolutely irrelevant because Byron Pringle can't make good decisions in life. And let's be real. Is there a chance Velus could have even hopped Byron Pringle on the depth chart?
Only if Pringle's suspended, and that's a cop-out.
So they drafted a wide receiver 3 over a Jalen Tolbert, who I think could have been a wide receiver 2 for them. So I'm sorry. Velus Jones, I have nothing against you, man. Just fantasy-wise, everything going into this situation is an absolute
even
L.
David Bell. And, like, no one was
Oh, David, that's the other one who was on the board.
right,
That's
like,
the other
no
wide
one was
receiver.
super high on David Bell in this draft, but teams were higher on David Bell than they were on Velus, whatever his name is, Jones. Like, teams just like David Bell more, except for the Bears.
That was the other name there, because there was another name out there that people were in on that Velus went before, and it was David Bell, because, yes, I remember going back and looking at that and thinking, really? You didn't take David Bell, 6'3"? Or 6'1", 212? Like, really? You don't want that guy in your offense?
And here's some other, like, deeper names. Calvin Austin from Memphis.
Another speed guy, but still, I liked him better than Velus.
Romeo Dubs. Khalil Shakir.
I had a toss up there. Oh, Khalil Shakir, I had Khalil Shakir higher than Velus Jones.
Like, there were plenty of receivers that make more sense for Chicago than Jones. And I get, like, look, Ryan Poles is trying to make, like, Kansas City in Chicago. He's just looking for speed. That's the only reason why they drafted him. And look, sure, you can have all the speed in the world, but, like, you've got to have some other, talent besides speed. And I don't think he has anything else besides his speed. So
there's so much there that we could just break down and unfold, and that I'm just so disappointed with them. And I mean, as a Vikings fan, I'm happy because they're the only NFC North team to not trade up for a high caliber wide receiver with us.
True.
So shout out Chicago. At any rate, Cameron's, we spent a little more time on Velus Jones and Pierce Strong just because we can chew into Cameron's time a little bit since he's not here. But Rachaad White was Cameron's loser, and I think part of it is Rachaad White, the talent coming out of Arizona State, would have been awesome as a starting running back somewhere. I think he would have been a very trendy late first round pick, I think, if he would have gone to a place where he could have been the starting running back. But he lands in Tampa behind Leonard Fournette, who's on a 3-year deal, could only be 2 years. There's an out for him after 2 years, but he ends up behind Leonard Fournette, who caught as many passes, or at least saw as many passes, as Austin Eckler last year. That doesn't scream pathway to running back duties in this offense for Rachaad White, who also is a great pass catcher. So I am a little bit disappointed that Rachaad White landed in Tampa Bay, and I do think he is a little bit of a loser fantasy-wise. NFL-wise, I think he'll be great there eventually. But fantasy-wise, I do think Rachaad White is a loser this year. All right, with the few minutes we have left here, Ty, let's each name a player that we're keeping our eye on in rookie drafts this year. Someone who may be a little bit of a sleeper, someone who's maybe gaining a little bit of hype, somebody at any rate that the people should know about, that we're keeping our eye on, and they should have their eye on too in rookie drafts.
Yeah, I will give 2 names because one is probably a more obvious name, but like in redrafts, I don't think you take this guy. That's James Cook. He's now the new partner in crime with Devin Singletary in Buffalo. There's some intrigue there, and I think everyone's like, well, he's a second round grade, or he was taken in the second, so he's going to get some usage. And I kind of like pumped the brakes on that a little bit because like he definitely wasn't going to be there at the end of round 3. So Buffalo kind of had to take him if they wanted him at the end of round 2. So again, just pump the brakes. But going forward, like in the future, like there could be some good potential with James Cook to be be the guy that finally kind of takes over the backfield for the Bills. So that's a redraft guy. But in terms of like rookie drafts and in dynasty stuff, I'll throw out a name like Keontae Ingram, who's with the Arizona Cardinals. Because currently it's James Conner and is it Ejo?
Nobody.
There
Eno
it is.
Benjamin.
Eno Benjamin. I was like, I know Benjamin, but what's his first name? Eno Benjamin.
Eno.
Ingram, he kind of popped off the tape a little bit. I didn't think he nearly had, I mean, for being an undrafted guy, or no, he went 7th round. He went 7th round.
He did go
For
7th.
being a 7th round guy, I thought he was going to go a little bit earlier, but I digress. He's a guy to kind of keep a lookout for late round rookie drafts in Dynasty because, like I said, there's no one else other than James Conner. So that's a name to be on the lookout for.
Yeah, a guy I'm looking to keep an eye on, Tyler Algier.
Yeah.
And here's why. I took Tyler Algier in our rookie draft. I actually took him late 2nd round. Mostly because running back was a deep need on my team. And I didn't want anybody else to swoop up any potential starting running backs down the road. And Tyler Algier may be a 5th round rookie, but his path to lead running back duties in an Arthur Smith offense, I think might be some of the best in this class. When you look at where guys like Isaiah Spiller landed, Rachaad White landed, Brian Robinson landed, right? James Cook even, right? James Cook is going to get receiving work, no questions about that whatsoever, but I digress. Tyler Algier, 5'11", 220, pure power back out of BYU. Great zone scheme runner. Tyler, you want to remind the people who is the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons?
Former Titans offensive coordinator Arthur Smith.
Yeah, and you want to tell me there's a name I'm thinking of in particular here that Arthur Smith in particular worked with during his time on the Tennessee Titans that helped really break out into the NFL as a very aggressive downhill power back rusher.
Are you talking about Derrick Henry?
I am talking about Derrick Henry. Now, don't hear this as Tyler Algier as Derrick Henry. That is not what I am saying, but what I am saying is I'll tell you what, they tried out that power back experience with Mike Davis last year. That didn't go well. Not at all. That did not go well at all. So, yes, they've re-signed Cordero Patterson. He will see some touches in the backfield, but I'll tell you what, Arthur Smith is going to want to power back on the field at some point. They brought in Damian Williams. Damian Williams is nice, but there's nothing about Damian Williams that screams lead running back in an offense. I think Tyler Algier could absolutely beat him out in the backfield, so he is a name throughout the offseason. I am keeping a very close eye on to see how much hype he gets, where he's at on the depth chart, how he's performing in comparison to both Cordero and Damian Williams in the backfield. Tyler Algier, even though he's a 5th round pick, right? 5th round picks typically don't pan out. He landed in such an ideal spot for his skill set that I think, like, if he saw the field and became like a whiff of fantasy relevant for even like 3-4 weeks, I think it could happen this year. But he is a guy too where I think he will take at least a year. And if the Falcons don't like him after a year, well, they didn't spend the capital on him, so they can get rid of him too. So there is definitely a risk with Tyler Algier in your dynasty formats. But after guys like Brian Robinson, after guys like Rachaad White, Isaiah Spiller, Dameon Pierce, right? Like I think it's worth looking at Tyler Algier as one of the next best running backs on the board. Maybe I'm a little biased because I did take him, but I'm excited for Tyler Algier. I think there's opportunity there. And where there's opportunity in fantasy, a lot of times comes points. So it's not confirmed. Haven't seen him play it down yet, but just my 2 cents. Cameron's player he was keeping an eye on. This is a player we're all keeping our eye on, who we're all very high on right now. Dameon Pierce. It's Marlon Mack and Dameon Pierce and David Johnson.
No.
David Johnson. Oh, no, Rex Burkhead. Sorry. It is Rex Burkhead. It is Rex Burkhead. I think Dameon Pierce, he's so talented. I know he didn't get the touches in college, but he is so explosive and talented that he could beat out all 3 of those guys. No question in my mind. I don't know if you have any last-minute thoughts on Damian Pierce here before we close out the podcast.
I think the only not even concern, the only question mark that I've got on Damian Pierce is exactly like what the receiving work is going to be like for him, and if he does get any, because it wouldn't surprise me if they give majority of the receiving work to Marlon Mack and Rex Burkhead a little bit instead of Damian Pierce. But if Damian Pierce kind of shows out a little bit in training camps and mini camps and whatnot, there's a good chance that Damian Pierce could be kind of a, dare I say, Michael Carter-esque type running back this year.
Ooh, I kind of like that comp, honestly. I don't mind that at all. It's not a bad place to be if you're Damian Pierce until they draft your replacement in the NFL draft, who's the best prospect in the class. But
Oh, no.
I digress. Well, thanks for tuning into this episode of the Fantasy Football Fellas podcast. That wraps out all of our content here for today. Tyler, any final thoughts you have for
Hey, hope you enjoy the first episode of the new season of the Fantasy Football Fellas. Stay tuned for more episodes coming out later on in the future. And just wait until we're all back in person together again recording. It's going to be a grand old time.
Every single week, we got a new episode coming out. So make sure you hit that subscribe button on your screen. Make sure to get all the notifications of when a new episode of the Fantasy Football Fellas comes out. You can follow us on our socials for even more daily content, daily fantasy football content. FF Fellas on Twitter, the FF Fellas on Instagram, Fantasy Football Fellas on Facebook, YouTube, and the good old TikTok. Do you know we're at 42,000 followers
We hit
on TikTok?
42.
42!
I did not know we hit 42.
We're at 42K.
Hey!
42K on TikTok. Go give us a follow over there. We are grateful for your support, as always. And if you're coming from TikTok, hey, thanks for hanging with us after last week. It was a little bit of a rocky road last week, but we are here and we are back. We made it. So thanks again for tuning in to another episode of the Fantasy Football Fellas. Well, it was 3 Stooges being dudes, and now it's just 2 Stooges being dudes. So with that, Tyler and Lucas signing off. Fantasy Football Fellas, we will see y'all next week.
Deuces.
Deuces.